Whoa, this is the Illusion reporting from somewhere on spaceship Earth. I'm here at the headquarters. I'm sitting here sewing up some Victory Stripe shirts, the Baba unit. If you haven't ordered a Victory Stripe, you can. It's a lot of work. I can crank them out now, but it's a full job to sit here and sew. But yeah, full handmade Illusion t-shirts. If you want to get some clothing that nobody else has, you can get one of these bad boys on your torso. But so I'm sitting here and I'm listening to some talks on YouTube. And I went to one I hadn't listened to it in a long time, and it's about the I don't even know how it came up on my playlist, but it's about weaponized anthropology. And if you don't know what weaponized anthropology is, you should clue in. You should really clue into weaponized anthropology, because what it is it's the total manipulation of our electromagnetic frequencies. And it talks a lot about how the 60s was an artificial movement, and that it was engineered, and it goes into the funding, where all the money was coming from, where all the LSD was coming from, who all these musicians were, where the plants were down in Laurel Canyon, up at the Merry Pranksters and all that stuff coming out of wherever they were coming out of up in the Bay Area. And that you can pretty much show that it was a organized government plan, and they were using psychedelics to create the false expansion. And so I was listening to this and I was thinking about it, and people ask me a lot about like psychedelics and what's my view on them is, I think they're a tool, but I also think they're a con, man. I think that whatever psychedelics offer you is a vacation from reality. Yeah, you can probably experience some pretty radical stuff. I have, most certainly. But then again, you realize through the arc of your life that it was all just an illusion, man. That the real expansion, the true expansion of what life is here in the living room, man, is with the family, trying to keep the family together and trying to vibrate at a high frequency and try to eat clean food and try not to add drugs and alcohol, add cars, add stuff, add. That if you can actually get centered on like the real life force, that is where the real psychedelic reality exists, is just sitting and practicing spirituality through the mundane reality of raising children, of not blowing it. Not blowing it, I think, might be the ultimate like psychedelic move you can make. And what the thing was going on about how the weaponized anthropology was really an organized plan to break up the families. And if you look at like what drugs and music have been used to do, whether it's the destruction of the black community with crack cocaine and violent rap, hip hop music, and you know Professor Griff gets into that stuff pretty heavily, and Public Enemy talks about it, and all sorts of hip hop artists talk about how the music was weaponized against the black community, and we can look at what's the result when you look at the black community in the 50s and how they were very homogenous and organized and very together. I forget what the proper word is. And so then you can look at this weaponized anthropology thing and realize they'd done it to the suburban family as well as to break them. And you look at what's going on now with the breakdown of society and children not being raised with two parents in the household and all that kind of stuff. And I get it. It's, you know, it's a full commitment to raise a child free of the machine. And what was cool is this Joseph Atwell. So I'll put the links down below for these two talks. he started going off about Catcher in the Rye, right? And Catcher in the Rye, I'm just going to do a stitch here to prove I can actually sew. This isn't just a prop. So Catcher in the Rye was the first book I ever read. And this guy breaks down Catcher in the Rye as basically subversive literature promoting pedophilia. And I was like, what? Because, you know, like, I think that's something that we all struggle with is the things that we love are being used to manipulate. Like, we had an incident. So I'll get back to the Catcher in the Rye. So, like, my sister-in-law, who's a hardcore militant lesbian, got all super uptight at us because we went to hang. We don't care. That we could care less what she does with her own vagina. But we went and we were having Al, and we were talking about how, like, you know, we don't have them in front of TVs, and we're not going to take them to movies. And she's like, you're never going to show them Disney? And we're like, no. And she got all uptight, like, I can't believe you're not going to show your kid Disney. And it's like, the more and more you look into, like, Walt Disney and how satanic and what the programming is out of Disney, and you look at who the Mouseketeers are, and the whole Disney program is just Masonic, satanic, evil programming. And I don't know, I was listening to this guy, and he was like, his one thing he was saying is, like, if you have children, don't ever let them watch TV. And I was like, because he's like, I just can't, you just don't know what's being programmed into them. And I was like, wow, man, just confirmation. Like, I can tell the difference between Al and kids that have been exposed to television. He'll walk right by a TV that's on now. He doesn't even care. And, which is super cool. But it's that thing, right, where, you know, people get all uptight when you say that, you know, start talking about listening to the Weaponized Anthropology, and that the Grateful Dead might have been a government plant to, like, subvert a whole culture away from its true potential. They sure made great music. I mean, I'm a fan of the Grateful Dead, but I won't deny that, like, they probably took a huge chunk of a generation and just mashed their mind into some, like, weird pulp. And so he was talking about Catcher in the Rye, and what I'm getting at is, I was like, whoa, Catcher in the Rye, like the first book I ever read. And I read it recently, like 2 years ago, just to reread it. And he was going off about how William Caulfield talks about how he has a person shooter hat on, and about how his sister doesn't want to have any clothes, and they're doing, and he was like, goes on and on about, like, how that really, like, what Catcher in the Rye is a metaphor about an entire Masonic ritual and the whole thing. And I was like, whoa, dude. And he was talking about how, like, that's tied into the 60s thing, because it was written in the 50s, and that J.D. Salinger was who J.D. Salinger was, and who he was tied to from his Valley Forge days, and then going over into the military and being a guy in World War II who was a translator interrogating German officers after the war and all this stuff. And you're like, whoa, dude, that is so radical. And I go, but that was like the first book I read. And I remember reading it with this dude who was back from Vietnam. I should tell a whole story about the first book I ever read, because it's like this crazy tale. But, like, I'm attached to that book, right? Like, I don't want that book to be part of, like, some, like, government psyop. But I was listening with an open mind, and I was like, whoa, dude, like, that's pretty radical, man, because I can see it. Like I can see what that book would do. And I was thinking about how strong I've been as a human being not to crack under pressure. Though I have cracked, right? The alcoholism and drug addiction and all that kind of stuff. But I've intuitively always never bought into any of it, man. I've never bought into any of it, man. I wrote a whole novel about it that I never finished. Well, I finished it, but I just never finished the final edit. All about this stuff. All about, like, misinformation, the illusion of what they're promoting through music and propaganda and television. And, you know, like I look at it now and I just like, wow, man, like I intuitively knew all this stuff in my 20s. And I took some pretty radical college courses where people were like giving you the information to discern it for yourself. And so I'm here and I'm listening to it and I go, I was thinking about that video I made the other day about like, you know, Al and not, you know what, man? I'm cool with it because you know what? People are uninformed out there and people are subjecting their kids to Disney. That is the weirdest thing for me because like you can just get into the whole how there's all the subliminal imagery in Disney. Like I've checked out some stuff with that, with the penises all in and out throughout Disney, dude. Like, and this dude was going on about all, like I can't even do, you got to just check out the Joseph Atwell like links, dude, about Catcher in the Rye and Miley. Starts going off about how Miley Cyrus, this was pretty interesting. He's talking about how Miley Cyrus was Hannah Montana, which was this innocent girl and this and that, which sucked in like a whole generation of young girls, little girls, right? And then Hannah Montana turns into Miley Cyrus, who is just like this whore and just promiscuous and doing drugs and just getting crazy, dude. So it was this thing where like it just psychologically punched all these young women into thinking like, oh, it's okay to just open up yourself to all this like bad juju. It just blows my mind, dude. Just sitting here on the sewing machine, listening to stuff and not being attached to my own story, right? Like, oh, I'll get a bunch of deadheads down below. Like, you can't talk smack about Jerry Garcia and the Grateful Dead and Weaponized Anthropology and David Crosby and Jim Morrison's dads were all in the military and blah, 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 blah. Dude, I don't care, man. I can check it out with an open mind and I'm going to go put on Birdsong right now and rock out. But the thing is the music can't get to me, dude, because I have already made my choice. See, I have a God of my own understanding. And a lot of these videos keep coming back to it is that's the one thing I can tell you. Is if you don't have a spiritual center, if you don't have a truth that you understand for yourself, dude, you can be easily swayed and deceived by men and women and the machine, if you will. Like it's all about like I have God in the center of my chest. You can call it what you want, but like with Jesus Christ as my personal savior, I don't have to live in fear, right? So that means because I don't live in fear, that means I can question ideas. I can question my own story. I can question what I've been up to. I don't have to attach to it and be like, hang on to it as because I can't let go of the story, dude. Like, no, like, see, I have a spiritual, I know the truth. I know my truth. And I always got to be clear, it's my truth. You need to figure out your own truth. But these talks I was listening to about weaponized anthropology, I haven't listened to them in 5 or 6 years, dude. And I remember them blowing my mind back in the day, dude. Because he starts talking about like Course in Miracles and all that stuff. And, you know, I got into Course in Miracles for a while too, man. And just about how like all those people were in on the MK Ultra thing too. And, you know, Theodore Kaczynski, dude, Professor Kaczynski, dude, talks about all the stuff that's going on in modern society now. And I don't know, dude. There's a lot of information out there, and that's what I keep getting back to, dude. I don't know. I don't know what's going on here, man. All I can tell you for sure is I'm sitting here sewing dinosaurs onto a t-shirt because somebody ordered them. And I'm making a video on YouTube, and Al's sleeping in his room right now. His mom's at some conference, and his sister's up at her friend's house. And I'm sitting here tripping out about, like, how radical the facade of information is that we call reality, man, and that it's not. And that the electromagnetic frequencies that we experience through our 5 senses are being radically manipulated, and we, as human beings, can barely see through it. But once we have the power, once we are connected to the source, once we are a beam of light, once we know the truth of who we are as spiritual beings, man, it doesn't matter because there's no fooling us anymore. You see, that's why you need to get off the drugs and alcohol. That's why you need to stop thinking that a new car is going to solve your problems or a trip to Indonesia is going to solve your problems, or anything's going to solve your problems. The only thing that's going to solve your problems, man, is getting in the now, right now, with the God of your understanding and vibrating at the highest frequency possible. Man, I could get going right now, dude. I'm fired up, dude, because you know what? I'm free, man. I am so free. I'm free like a bird, dude. I know it right now, sitting here on the sewing machine, sewing away, just brrr, dude, making my shirts, dude, making my little badass shirts, dude. I don't care, dude. I think they're rad, dude. You know what? I take a chance, dude. People are buying them, dude, and I'm stoked. I sit here and I make them by hand, dude. No one can take that away from me. That's freedom, dude. Freedom sitting here, getting some sweat going on your brow, listening to some crazy stuff on the machine. Brrr, it's the illusion. Signing out. Keep the dream real, man. Keep using your mind to discern the truth with your heart. I know, man, because I talk a lot about how the mind will deceive you, but you got to use your heart in contact with God to filter all the nonsense through your mind, right? Because you were given a mind to discern the information and check it up against the truth and compare it with the thing. It's like this cross-checking thing, dude. And then once you can do that, dude, you're no longer afraid of anything, man. I'm not afraid of anything, dude. I don't think so anymore, man. Nah. This is The Illusion signing off again. Have a good one.